Hey, welcome to Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk. My name is Robert Lamb.
And I'm Christian Sager.
And I'm Joe McCormick, and we're the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works network. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. This is Trailer Talk, where we come on, talk about movies. If you want to check out the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, you're not already subscribed, go wherever you get your podcasts. Look up Stuff to Blow Your Mind. You can download recent episodes and hit the subscribe button. But why are we on here today? What are we going to be talking about?
Well, we usually try and pick something that ties into episodes we've recorded, and we recently did a three-parter on the Ig Nobel Prizes. Yeah. So there's a number of different weird and or funny, but still important scientific studies, and one of them had to do with the hairy-legged vampire bat, and that's good enough for us.
And you had chosen that topic, right? So can you refresh the audience's memory? Well, they might not have heard the episode yet.
So if you haven't heard the episode, you should go download it. But to give you the basic rundown, this would be the prize was given to a study that discovered for the first time in the wild, under natural conditions, hairy-legged vampire bats, which normally only feed on wild bird blood, feeding on domestic chickens and Homo sapiens.
Yes,
so
nice.
they analyzed some bat feces and found human DNA in them, meaning that they're essentially it's a study showing the effects of human incursion into natural ecosystems, the effects of human agriculture, and what happens when you eliminate the natural prey source of something like a vampire bat. What do they turn to? Well, it turns out in this case they may actually turn to humans.
And vampires and vampire bats are one of our favorite topics on Stuff to Blow Your Mind. I think since I've been on the show, we've done at least 3 or 4 episodes about it.
Well, it's one of those topics where you have biology, folklore, horror, psychology. It all comes together into one mind-blowing package. So we can't help but dip our toes into the vampire content bucket whenever we can.
Yeah, and we are huge fans of vampire movies. Here's the thing, though. We had to sit down and narrow it down to 3 movies for today. There are so many good vampire movies. Like, I think our email chain is like 50 emails long because we were like, wait, what about this one? Wait, no, what about this one? Because there's so many good ones out there. There's a lot of bad ones. There's a lot of bad ones. But we had to narrow it down to 3 that we really wanted to share with you today.
Now, in the end, I don't think I would say most of the key vampires we're discussing here today have very smooth legs and not hairy legs at all. So it's not going to be like a literal, 1-to-1 on hairy-legged vampires and cinematic vampires.
Do either of the... I know the answer to this for your movie, but do the vampires in your movie change into bats?
No, I don't think they
recall that happening.
Yours turn into snakes, sort of. But okay. So neither for mine. Mine are not related to bats in any way. But
I'm not sure any of the movies really had the budget for it.
Yeah. I just watched, what's that Taika Waititi movie?
What We Do in the Shadows?
Oh, yeah.
So that's funny,
That's a good one.
I was watching that. The bat effect in that was pretty good, where they were changing into bats and having bat fights.
Yeah. All right, well, let's go ahead and jump into it. Let's start off with our first movie here. We're going to go back to...
Wait, before we do, we should just say, if you want to let us know your favorite vampire movie,
you
can go down in the comments, enter that, and if you have a question for us about vampire movies or about anything else, you can let us know. We've got our friend Sherry here, and she will read out questions to us, and so we'll try to respond to them.
Yeah, now's the time. Now's the time to talk to us about vampire movies.
Get into the ground floor.
And please, somebody say Twilight.
Let's go to 1988. That's where we're going to enjoy our first film. This is a little treasure.
All of us love this movie.
Yeah, this is tremendous. I remember seeing this in, I want to say junior high, maybe early high school, but it is Lair of the White Worm.
So I saw this for the first time within the last year and a half.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and it is just great. So directed by Ken Russell. I'm wondering, can you draw a thematic line straight through from The Devils to Tommy to Altered States to Lair of the White Worm? Is there anything these have in common other than that they're all crazy and weird?
But I've been thinking about this. Because I saw this and I went, you know what? I love all 4 of the movies you've just mentioned. Tommy's okay. I don't love it. But this guy made great films. And then I was like, what's his filmography? And I looked and there's like 50 films that he directed.
He's done a lot of like shorts and TV movies.
Documentaries. He's kind of, he reminds me a lot in terms of his filmography of Werner Herzog, in that they just go their whole career, but it's not just one type of film.
But always very individualist. They're not making movies like other people are.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I read on this one, basically the money men came to him and said, "Yeah, we'll fund your next film, which was going to be something the Rainbow movie. I forget what it's called.
Might just be called The Rainbow. Is that right?
Maybe. Yeah, it was a follow-up to Women in Love.
Okay.
Yeah. So Women in Love is the D.H. Lawrence novel
Yes.
that he adapted in the late '60s into a film, which I haven't seen, but it's supposed to be good.
It's supposed to be a great film, and mostly remembered for its nude wrestling match between what's his name?
I don't know.
Oh, he was
Michael
in the
J.
Brood.
Fox.
He was in the Devils.
Oliver. No, wait.
Oliver.
Yeah, Oliver Reed.
Oliver Reed, yeah.
And I forget the other gentleman he was wrestling with, but
Man, I would watch a nude Oliver Reed wrestling match.
it awaits you. But yeah, Ken Russell's films are always so visual, so weird, so wonderfully independent. And yeah, the producers apparently came to him and said, "Look, do another horror film, and we can fund you on this next D.H. Lawrence thing." And so, Lair of the White Worm was
He
born.
had tremendous fun with this movie, clearly.
It's great.
So Lair of the White Worm is based on a Bram Stoker novel, first published in 1911 by the same name, Lair of the White Worm. And that, in turn, is based on a local legend in northern England, in County Durham, around the so-called Lambden estate, about this giant dragon that ate a bunch of children and livestock and curled around a hill in County Durham. And so the basic story is there's this man named John Lambden, and one day he gets a really rude idea. He's going to skip church and go fishing. So he skips church, goes fishing, and catches this worm or eel kind of creature. Isn't really into it, doesn't want to take it home for dinner, so he throws it away into a well. Then Lambton goes off to the Crusades. So
this is real early.
Yeah.
Okay.
Meanwhile, while he's gone, this eel creature that's been dropped into the well grows to enormous size and becomes a dragon.
Yeah.
And it terrorizes the county, eats livestock, eats sheep. But the cows won't produce milk, I think because it's drinking their milk or something. It eats children, and eventually he has to go back and do all these Home Alone traps to his own body to defeat the white worm and kill it.
Interesting.
It kind of sounds like the movie Alligator is an urban retelling of this
Really?
legend. Yeah.
Yeah.
Flush that animal down the toilet and it becomes a monster.
Yeah, the guilt of the sewage disposal of a living creature. Yeah.
I have a fun fact for you. You ready for this?
Okay.
So the Wicker Man movie we all love, we've talked about on the show before. The Wicker Man does have a sequel called The Wicker Tree.
Yes.
But the screenwriter of The Wicker
where
Man
you're going.
originally wanted to do a sequel that was going to feature the Lambden Worm in it. And it was going to be, the police officer from The Wicker Man was going to survive the events of The Wicker Man and go on to go through all these kind of like hero's journey adventures in this sequel and then fight the Lambden
Wow.
Worm.
So he'd be like the melted detective
Yes.
coming back to fight a dragon in northern England.
And they never made
Man,
it. The director
I would watch that so hard.
The director literally said at one point, nobody liked that. No one wanted to make it.
But what if in the sequel though he became one with the Wicker Man, and so he's just
He
either
could
a
drive the
giant
Wicker
or
Man.
human-sized Wicker Man walking around fighting the
Mech
serpent.
warrior.
Yeah. Now, if you out there, if there are any other VHS era kids who saw this movie, it may have been decades since you've seen it, but the things that stick with you are, of course, the dream sequences.
Oh, yeah.
This crazy worm puppet, and then the let's see, the sexy serpentine priestess lady.
Oh, yeah.
Who is sometimes blue and sometimes a vampire, and frequently is running around with a sort of like a sacrificial phallus.
Yeah. Yes. So you might be wondering, wait a minute, weren't we talking about vampires? And this is a dragon. So basically the character Lady Sylvia Marsh in this movie is some kind of a snake vampire creature. It's never fully established, but she has snake-like fangs, sort of acts like a vampire, and can turn other people into snake vampires. So the movie, I want to be clear, doesn't follow the story of the original Lambton Worm. It's a sequel. Sort of picks up from it. Yeah. It's set in the modern day. It is silly, and the the cast just can't be beat. So
It's
you
an
got
amazing cast.
Peter Capaldi, the most, Malcolm Tucker from In the Loop, in the thick of it, not swearing much here.
Most of our listeners probably know him as the Doctor. From Doctor
Yeah,
Who.
yeah, the most recent Doctor, I guess.
Yeah.
But yeah, Peter Capaldi, he's young here, and he looks like Egon Spangler
He
from
does.
Ghostbusters.
He's just a sheepish, nerdy character.
In high school,
Yeah.
I looked like this version of Peter Capaldi.
I can affirm this is true. I've
Yeah.
seen his high school yearbook, and he looks like
I looked
Peter
exactly
Capaldi in this
like
movie.
this, yeah.
And so he goes on an archaeological dig. He's an archaeologist. He digs up this giant old skull, and it's a dragon skull. It's the skull of the White Worm. And then you've also in the movie got Hugh Grant as this layabout aristocrat who's just kind of jolly and always slightly amused and has no real concerns in the world.
Yeah.
You can see his depth of ease in every scene. And he sort of has these series of flirtatious encounters with Lady Sylvia Marsh.
Right.
And then you've also got Catherine Oxenberg, who I otherwise only know from the Christian Apocalypse movie The Omega Code, but she's in this as the damsel in distress character.
Right.
And I want to say that Amanda Donahoe, who plays Lady Sylvia Marsh in this movie, she should have gotten an Oscar.
Oh, yeah.
She is amazing.
She just
it's one of those
pours herself into it. Yeah.
It's one of those roles where you see an actor just say, okay, I'm going to commit 10 billion% to this ridiculous role, and she does an awesome job.
This is an awesome movie. I think it's one of those movies that like has gotten a reputation as being kind of like silly or like a bad movie, but it's genuinely fun to watch.
Yeah, well, it
enjoy
is
this
definitely
film.
silly, but yeah, it's great.
I will point out, though, that I'm still trying to figure out what it did to me to see this movie when I was going through puberty.
I was going to say, there's a lot going on in here.
Yeah.
It's also kind of like a buddy movie between Peter Capaldi and Hugh Grant.
Yeah, kind of.
It kind of has that structure.
Yeah.
So what I'm wondering is, to get into character, as far as deep as Amanda Donahoe goes in the character of the snake vampire woman, do you think she did method acting? Like, was she eating rats in her trailer and coiling around things?
This would actually, I would love to see like a fictional film adaptation of this where the actress that is going to play the White Worm worshipping snake priestess vampire lady, like she has to seek out the White Worm and actually becomes a worshiper in order to embody this role.
She actually wore the fangs 24/7. Like she slept in the fangs.
I'd believe it, man. Yeah, this is great.
She should be celebrated more as a horror
We
icon.
gotta talk about the bagpipes, though, right?
Oh yeah, there's a great. Well, we shouldn't spoil too much.
Okay.
We should maybe just say that bagpipes make an excellent appearance.
Yes.
Well, and there's some other cool music because early on in the film there is a performance of a traditional song about the legend.
Yes, the drinking song that tells the story of the Lambton Worm, the one I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
What a great movie! Like, somebody needs to give Ken Russell a statue somewhere. Between this, The Devils, and Altered States, it's like 3 of the best movies.
Yeah. Throw in what, Gothic? Is that the other horror?
Is that the one
he
with
did?
Halle Berry?
No, this one had.
You're thinking of Gothica, I think.
Oh, okay.
This had Julian Sands in it.
Oh, I never saw that.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh, Julian Sands, Warlock.
Yes, the Warlock.
Okay.
The Anne Rice's original choice to play Lestat.
That's right. Yeah.
How much better that would have been.
So that is wow. That was a must put on the list.
Yeah,
Like we
okay.
all immediately were like, oh yeah, of course we're gonna do Lair of the White Worm.
Is that enough for Lair of the White Worm? Do we have any comments, Sherry? Anybody?
Not about that, but
Felix says, have you seen 1922's Nosferatu by Murnau?
Oh, yeah.
Of course I have.
Classic.
Yeah.
And Shadow of the Vampire, about the making of Nosferatu, is a great film.
I want to mention 2 follow-ups. That one is, it's not a perfect movie, but Willem Dafoe is so good
great.
in it.
Yeah.
It's worth seeing just for that. And there's some really good scenes.
Yeah.
Like there's a scene where somebody is asking the actor playing the vampire, who is actually a vampire, if he'd read Bram Stoker's Dracula, and he said he did, and they asked him what he thought about it, and he says, it's sad. And they asked him why, and he says, because Dracula didn't have any servants. But another one I want to recommend is Werner Herzog's 1970s
Klaus Kinski.
remake of Nosferatu with Klaus Kinski as the Dracula character, Count Orlok. Fabulous. And fabulous in that I love the themes of Dracula bringing plague rats with him everywhere he goes. And that's definitely a great part of that one.
Do you guys know that there's a Nosferatu remake in the works right now?
No, I didn't know that.
The dude who wrote and directed The Witch is doing a Nosferatu remake.
Whoa!
Yeah, and it's gonna have what's her name, Anna Taylor-Joy in it.
I will watch that.
Yeah,
I will
me
watch
too.
That,
I'm
man.
looking forward to it.
All right, well, let's move on to our next movie. This one is from 1986, which instantly it just takes me back to all the movies that came out in '86. Because if you had to do a top 10, maybe even a top 20 of your favorite films from '86, I don't think this would even make most people's lists. Just because it's so rich with Big Trouble in Little China, Aliens, The Fly, the list goes on and on. Even non-genre pieces like The Mission. I mean, there are just so many wonderful films that you often forget about the movie Vamp, which I had not seen before. But before, I remember seeing the VHS in the store when I was a kid, and it had kind of this scary vampire face, but also this big, colorful, like pink or crimson V. And I finally checked it out just this week, and it is tremendously entertaining. This is a fun vampire movie.
I watched it just last night. Now, one of my first thoughts was I wanted to compare part of the movie, though it's not quite as great as this. It's sort of like Night of the Creeps.
Yes.
Though I think not as funny as Night of the Creeps, not quite as dry. It's a little sillier, crazier, but it has a very similar premise. You've got a couple of too cool for school kids who are trying to get into a fraternity, and
Which they are also too cool for, I believe.
yeah, they want to get into the fraternity, but they also are like, this fraternity. So,
What's his name in it? The guy from Night of the Creeps?
Tom Atkins?
No.
No, I wish. It would have been perfect with Tom Atkins. But it does have some really good highlights in the cast. I'd say primarily the best thing about this movie is Grace Jones.
Yeah, Grace Jones is I mean, she's the one whose name is like highlighted on the trailer, and she plays the central vampire woman in this film. And yeah, she's in the same way that we were talking about the central vampire in Lair, the White Worm. Here we have another performance where someone just pours themselves into this character. It's maybe a bit much to say it's a character per se. It's just like a bestial amplification of everything that was Grace Jones. So she's just using all of this supermodel energy. She's taking on these like bestial body movements.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't she do something kind of similar in Conan the Destroyer? Like she growled and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, she was just a straight up barbarian in that. Yeah. But she was only so fashionable. In this, she's just like decked out in crazy avant-garde costumes all the time.
Yeah, so we've seen other movies with, some prurient interest goes into vampire strippers.
Yes.
I mean, and people have seen From Dusk Till Dawn and all that. In this movie, Grace Jones plays a vampire stripper, but she's not really a stripper. She is more like this amazing avant-garde performance artist who has all this strange like body paint and weird costume elements made out of metal and does this crazy dance with these odd props. It's really weird.
Yeah, it has kind of a cabaret vibe to it. Now, one thing you've probably noticed by this, and certainly you've noticed it if you've seen the film, is the color scheme. The gels in this movie are so, I don't know, I don't know if it appeals to everybody in the same way. Maybe it's a nostalgia for the time period on my part, but the colors here are just so soothing. The purples, the greens.
There is a major color scheme, I would say, that is pink and green.
Yes.
That many scenes and even many shots in the movie have a divided frame where half the frame is green and half the frame is pink, or violet maybe, violet pink. And I'm not sure exactly what role that was supposed to play in the film. Maybe it didn't have any kind of thematic significance, but was just they thought it looked cool. But it's one of those things that for the first 10 minutes of it, I thought it was really cool. By the end of the movie, I kind of did want some different colors.
Well, luckily it's not that long a movie. This is a movie that goes in and really it seems to accomplish what it sets out to do. Much like Night of the Creeps, it's walking that thin line of being a horror-y, action-y movie that is a bit silly, that doesn't take itself too seriously, but also doesn't fall too far down the trap of just becoming a farce,
I mean, I'd say it's more than a bit silly, but I'd also say it's not a farce. Like the vampire scenes, they actually do vampire scenes. It's not like Airplane. They're not just going for jokes.
Yeah, the vampires look terrifying. Now on the far side, It is interesting that you had old school comic Sandy Barron, who plays this character who's kind of the Renfield, I guess, in a way, of this film, except he eats cockroaches out of a little like snack. What do you call it? A peanut bowl or something?
Yeah. He's got a little glass dish of, I guess people assume it's nuts or something, but the college kid who's trying to hire a stripper reaches into the bowl and eats some cockroaches and doesn't notice they're cockroaches until he's chewing them.
Yeah. The character's name is Vic, and he keeps going on about how he just wants to get to Vegas one day.
Yeah.
He's great in every scene.
He even gets tricked at one point in the movie by people sweet talking him about what they do in Vegas.
Yeah. Let's see, what else is... Oh, another notable star that pops up in this is a guy that a lot of people will probably remember from The Untouchables, and various other sort of B-movie movies where he played a thug or a villain or possibly a lizard man, Billy Drago. This is the guy who kills Sean Connery in The Untouchables.
Yep. He has this reptilian face. I don't know what more to say about it than that. He is a reptile walking on two legs.
Yeah, and in this movie he's a biker and surprisingly not a vampire, but he has a wonderful run-in with a little girl vampire.
This movie actually has a similar dynamic to, and stick with me for a second here, Friday the 13th Part 3, in that it has an antagonistic biker gang who comes into conflict with the heroes or the main characters of the movie, but then later in the movie saves the heroes by fighting the villain in an unrelated incident. So you've got like, at the end of Friday the 13th Part 3, Jason's coming up on the main heroine, and then suddenly a biker shows up, is like, I'm going to fight Jason now.
Yeah, I can see the comparison.
Hey,
there.
it looks like we've got... Oh, yes. David says, don't forget Near Dark with Bill Paxton and Lance Hendrickson.
Great
Love
flick.
the 80s. That was one of my original picks, but these guys actually covered it on a previous episode, so we decided to go with all new movies. Yeah. Near Dark and... what was my other one? Life Force. Near Dark and Life Force are also pretty high up on my list of vampire movies.
Give us your postcard review of each one.
Life Force, crazy puppet CG, not even CGI. It's what do you call them? Natural effects.
Yeah, traditional animation.
Yeah,
and,
all
natural.
And puppets
Toby Hooper. Enough said. Near Dark. Bill Paxton and Lance Hendrickson. It's basically the cast of Aliens riding around in a Winnebago, and they're vampires, and they make Adrian Pasdar. They're in Texas, right?
I think so.
And they make him into a vampire. His dad changes his vampire transformation, stops it, by giving him an infusion of pig blood. It's a great movie.
Yeah, Bill Paxton plays an amazing.
He's very good in that. Yeah.
But then he takes on pig characteristics.
One more thing I wanted to say, at least about Vamp here, is it was written and directed by this guy Richard Wink, or perhaps Vink. He's a guy.
Is it not Wank? We were calling him Richard Wank.
Wank, yeah.
I don't know.
Could
Guys,
be. Wink.
I'm not going to make this
Wink,
joke.
wink,
It's so
wink.
obvious I'm not going to make it.
You get to choose, because the thing is, you might not know how to say his name because he basically seemed to have vanished after this film, and he didn't come back around until the 2010s. Mainly writing scripts for movies like The Expendables 2, Jack Reacher 2, various remakes of older
Speaking of
properties like
Werner Herzog.
like what was it? There's several Denzel Washington action films that were based on old TV series.
What was the writer of this movie of Vamp? I think was named like Donald P. Borchers or something.
Yeah.
These sound like made-up names.
Yeah, they really
They've gotta
do.
be
Richard
be
Wank and
pseudonyms.
Donald Borchers.
Yeah, but it's shocking because like this film seems to work perfectly. It seems to achieve what it sets out to do. Maybe it was just because '86 was such a crowded year. Maybe it didn't do as well as it could have.
This is back when directors all dressed like Indiana Jones.
Well, let's see. Anything else we want to hit on this one before we move on? Just, I guess, again, to drive home that Grace Jones, like, just owns this movie.
Yeah, she is fabulous. And there's also a great scene in this movie. I won't spoil when it happens, but it's the only movie I've seen where a skeleton gives somebody the finger.
That's so good. The skeletal FU that we get. Yeah. Oh, so good.
Hey, so you guys want to remind everybody what we're doing here, and then we'll do our last film?
So if you are just tuning in, we are the hosts of the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast, a science podcast in the How Stuff Works network. This is not the Stuff to Blow Your Mind podcast. This is Stuff to Blow Your Mind Trailer Talk, where we come on to talk about movies related to recent episodes. We had an episode earlier this week that talked about vampire bats, so we're talking about our favorite weird vampire movies. Today, if you're not subscribed to our podcast, you can check it out wherever you get your podcast, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, anything like that, or you can go to stufftoblowyourmind.com. Wherever you go, hit subscribe so we keep coming at you. And I think we may have a comment coming in.
We have 3 more about this era of vampire movies.
Yeah, all right,
Let's
let's
hear
take
'em.
some comments.
Yeah.
Nathan says, have you guys seen Children of the Night, 1990?
No.
Children of the Night.
I don't think I've
No.
seen that.
I have
don't
not
think
seen
so.
Children of the Night from 1990, Nathan. No, I don't. I've never seen that. It doesn't seem like any of us have.
Is it
I'd have
worth
to-
seeing?
I'd
Let
have to
us
see
know.
the VHS cover. Like that's what'll bring me back to it. if I
Okay,
have.
thank you, Nathan. What's the next
What
one?
else, Sherry?
Victoria says there's a weird late 80s, early 90s cartoon series of straight-to-VHS movies called The Ketchup Vampires that is super weird and rich.
Wow. Okay,
They
I've never
drink
heard of this
ketchup?
either.
Victoria mentions a
Yeah.
late 80s, early 90s animated series called The Ketchup. The what? The Ketchup?
Ketchup Vampires.
The Ketchup Vampires.
I will mention, and I told everybody here on our crew about this, that my scariest experience with a vampire was an episode from the 3rd season of The Amazing Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends, where Dracula attacked them and made Firestar into a vampire. So that was tough, but I got over it.
I gotta say, in childhood, one of my scariest vampires was from an episode of Are You Afraid of the Dark?
Yeah,
Which
see?
there's one with like this green-faced vampire in a hospital.
Yeah.
It really freaked me out when I was a kid.
So we got, Children of the Night and the Ketchup Vampires. What's our third one?
What else?
Jack doesn't want you to forget about The Hunger.
Oh, The
Oh,
Hunger was on
yeah.
my list as well, Jack.
Jack mentions The Hunger.
Yeah, The Hunger is a fantastic movie. Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie, Susan Sarandon. Great vampire movie. Yeah, that was also one of my picks, but we had to cut it for time.
And I admit I've never seen it.
Oh, it's so good. You
Yeah.
should totally see it. Yeah. David Bowie is like the thrall vampire to Catherine Deneuve, and he's
Is he smooth?
very smooth, but here's the problem. He's aging prematurely despite being immortal. So he has to
Oh.
go to Susan Sarandon, who's a gerontologist, to help him with that problem.
You know,
Whoa.
I feel like Bowie and Grace Jones are both examples of cultural icons where people looked at him and said, "This person's got to play a vampire."
Yeah.
Are there pop culture figures out there today that have not played vampires that absolutely should?
Marilyn Manson?
I wouldn't put him in the same category as Bowie
Oh,
and Grace Jones.
no, I
but-
wouldn't either, but I'm just saying he seems like the obvious choice.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, out there, if you've got... keep coming with the comments. Tell us about more vampire movies, because now we're learning about ones we haven't seen before.
Yeah.
So tell us what your favorites are, and then who do you think should be in a vampire movie? If we were going to make a Stuff to Blow Your Mind vampire movie, we had an unlimited budget, who should we cast in it? All right, you guys ready for the last film, and then we'll take some more comments afterwards?
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
hear it.
All right, my film is not as silly as yours, your 2 picks, but it is pretty gruesome. This is 2001's Trouble Every Day. This is a movie that I saw right after it came out, and it was so upsetting that a friend of mine had to literally get up and walk out of the room and stand with his back to the television because he was so upset by what was occurring on screen.
Was this a squeamish friend?
He is a little squeamish,
Yeah.
yeah. But he also works in a hospital, so that tells you how
Wow,
much he's seen.
okay.
Now
So
this is Trouble Every Day, not Nothing But Trouble.
exactly, it's not Nothing But Trouble. Very different movies. So Trouble Every Day is a 2001 French film that's made by Claire Denis. She directed it and co-wrote it with a guy named Jean-Paul Fargeau. Now, I want to warn everybody looking at this, the trailer should be fine, but this movie is extremely graphic and gory, and it's very difficult to watch. The film itself was maligned by critics because of how gruesome it is. I really liked it, though. It is a bit tough to watch at times, but it's also beautiful in the way that the cinematography captures everything. It's unclear if these are monsters that are vampires, though.
Oh.
Here's what we know about them. One's Vincent Gallo. They drink blood and eat human flesh. But it's unclear what they are. It reminded me, though, of the Ig Nobel study because they change their diet based on their environment. The essential gist of the film is Vincent Gallo is an American who is in France, in Paris, for his honeymoon with his wife. Turns out that he's worked there before with a neuroscientist and his wife, and they were part of some weird experiment. And here's what they said about the experiment. It's a scientific experiment that's gone wrong, that was an attempt to cure nervous diseases, pain, mental disease, and problems with the libido.
Okay.
So the wife of the neuroscientist is afflicted with the same thing that Vincent Gallo is, and essentially it makes them hunger for blood. Okay? And she is locked in the house all the time, but she gets out all the time and just eats people. And Vincent Gallo is struggling with his desires to eat people as well. That's about as much as I want to say about it. If you're interested in watching it or you just want to know more about the plot, go ahead and look it up online. It's a really pretty movie.
I was going to say, or actually I did say before we came on here, I think you could make a horror movie that's just Vincent Gallo as Vincent Gallo, where the horror is him staring into the camera with his lizard eyes.
He has some very piercing eyes, that Vincent Gallo.
I have to say, despite him being in this, because I had the same thing where I was like, I don't know, Vincent Gallo, it maybe turned me off, it might turn some of you off, but if you've seen his infamous works like The Brown Bunny or Buffalo 66, he's actually really good in this. And I think it's because Claire Denis is such a great director. She makes good use of his model features.
I have to admit that I've only seen like 2 things with Vincent Gallo in. I haven't even seen Goodfellas. I've seen Basquiat.
Okay, yeah.
And I've seen the Jay-Z video 99 Problems,
Right.
where he's, for some reason, he's just walking around with Rick Rubin in some of those scenes. You have to kind of look for it, but he's there, hanging out.
I mean, whatever people would... I think there are a lot of people who don't like him as a person, and whatever you think of him as a filmmaker, I do think he's good on camera. He's a good actor.
Yeah. We were talking about this before. Like, I think he's a talented guy, but I think his narcissism and his ego gets in the way.
Yeah.
But in this case, because he wasn't writing or directing it, he was just performing. It wasn't as big of an issue for me.
Right.
And this movie is challenging.
Yeah.
It's very challenging to watch, but I enjoy it.
All right.
So I'm wondering, what are the other... You mentioned who are the great figures that should be in vampire movies playing vampires that haven't had that opportunity yet. I'm thinking now, we've talked about, Drago... What's his name? Billy Drago?
Bill from
Vamp. Yeah, that actor, Drago.
He has to have played
Vincent
a vampire.
Gallo. No. I'm thinking, like, who are the creepiest looking people out there today? The people with the lizard eyes.
Oh... Who's that actor that has been in just about everything recently that played the non-Charlie Day scientist in the Giant Monster
I know who
movie?
you're talking about, yeah.
He has a very lizardy
what is
appearance.
His name? Yeah.
Gorman, something like that?
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
always talking like this.
Yeah, he
He's
would
in
be
Game
a
of
good
Thrones,
pick.
yeah.
Right, yeah, he was in Game of Thrones. I think he was in Misfits as well.
Do we have a comment coming in?
First, Nathan suggests Werner Herzog as a vampire.
Oh, yeah.
Werner
He'd make a
Herzog
great
playing a vampire.
Very good.
You know,
Jack Reacher 3, Werner Herzog the Vampire.
somebody mentioned Jack Reacher earlier, and I was going to say, I thought that movie was terrible, but I love seeing Werner Herzog show up as an actor to play the villain.
Yeah.
Well, we got another comment there,
Yeah.
too?
Well, there's a couple more vampire suggestions.
Okay.
Yeah?
Rowan Atkinson.
Rowan Atkinson is a vampire. Didn't he do a vampire movie? I want to say there was some kind of, like, gag vampire thing he was in, but okay. That's a good pick.
Steve Buscemi.
Steve Buscemi.
he would be-
Okay.
He'd be an interesting vamp.
Christopher Walken.
Christopher
Walken is a vampire in one of the movies that I was going to pick for today, The
Which one?
Addiction.
Oh.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
that's another great vampire movie. It's him and Lily Taylor. Yeah, and it's all a metaphor about drug addiction.
Jordan asks, have y'all seen trailers for Vampire, a new vampire game set in England during the Spanish flu?
No.
That sounds like a lot of fun, actually. Yeah.
Do y'all know the director of that? It's a very old film from the beginning of the 20th century called Vampyr, Vampyr.
I know what you're talking about. I have not seen it, though.
I wish I could remember the name of the director. It was maybe Swedish or something like that.
Okay.
But it's a really great movie. It's it's weird to say that about movies that early, but yeah, it's fantastic to watch now. It's full of dreamlike hallucinatory imagery and logic, and it's very creepy.
You know, one whole area that I was tempted to go to for my selection, but opted not to, was to get into the topic of hopping Hong Kong
Yeah.
cinema vampires.
Actually,
There's
Sherry
so
brought
much
that
stuff.
up with us.
Yeah.
Rigor Mortis. We've
Yeah.
talked about that before on the show. Rigor Mortis is a Hong Kong action movie that is about hopping vampires.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool movie.
Has there ever been a movie where Jean-Claude Van Damme fights vampires, where he has to do karate on vampires?
That's a good question.
There's still time. There's still
Yeah.
time. He's out there.
Yeah.
He's having a
Going
career
strong.
renaissance.
Yeah.
Come on.
Okay. Well, I think we've done it. We've talked about 3 great vampire movies, so you have something to do over Thanksgiving break. I would suggest eating your entire Thanksgiving meal and then watching Trouble every day, so that you have a lot to feel sick about afterwards.
Yeah. And if you want ultimate awkward times, watch Vamp and Lair of the White Worm with your elderly
grandparents.
relatives.
Yeah, because even though Vamp is less explicit, there are a lot of scantily clad and half-naked ladies just kind of hanging out
Yeah.
in the scene. So it is
All
it's
of
a
these
product of
movies
its time.
definitely have nudity in them,
Yeah.
that's for sure. Okay, well, thank you all for joining us, and so we're actually going to be gone for the holidays next week, but we'll be back following that with more trailer talk for Stuff to Blow Your Mind.
Thanks.
He learned almost too late that man is a feeling creature. And because of it, the greatest in the universe. And he learned too late for himself that men have to find their own way to make their own mistakes. There can't be any gift of perfection from outside ourselves. And when men seek such perfection, they find only death, fire, loss, disillusionment, and the end of everything that's gone forward. Men have always sought an end to toil and misery. When it can't be given, it has to be achieved. There is hope, but it has to come from inside, from man himself.